But there are multiple reasons, multiple causes of this crisis, also depending on the country. But overall, what we have seen in recent years is, first of all, an increase in the cost of production, of construction, that has pushed the prices up. An increase in demand that is related not only to the traditional demand for residential housing, but we have observed an increase in the demand of housing for touristic use, for example. We have seen an increase of mobility, workers' mobility, students' mobility. So we have multiple demands for housing, which are going above and beyond the traditional residential use, but actually are reducing the supply available for residential use. At the same time, the supply for affordable housing, social housing in most countries has been reducing over the years. Policies dedicated to housing, which were more popular in the past century, have been, almost eliminated in most countries. So which are limiting themselves to maintain the current stock of social housing. In most cases, this stock has been privatized or sold out, so it's been reducing. So we see an explosion of different demands and a supply then, especially for the segment of social and affordable housing, has been reducing or at least not increasing. Yeah, of course, the European Union, you said it, since we don't have the direct powers to intervene in policies that are directed to housing, because these are mostly national. In many cases, they are regional competences, so it took a while before we decided to move into this topic, but I think it's very important because there are many things that we can do at the European level, and the committee that we created in the Parliament has been dedicated to better analyze, understand the roots of the problem, and see what we could do at the European level. So as I said earlier, since some of the causes may not even appear directly related to housing, so the increase in demand for housing for touristic use, for example, it's something that in the past was not associated to housing in itself as a problem, but now we realize that it is affecting the availability of houses in certain cities. And for example, on this field, the European Union could intervene with a framework for a possible regulation that countries and cities that are experiencing the greatest problems could adopt. That does not mean that the European Union has to regulate from Brussels, but to define the criteria and the conditions under which cities and regions could intervene if they see needed. Another issue, state aid rules, for example. Supporting social housing projects mean also to do some public investments that sometimes may bump into state aid rules. So making some little changes in state aid rules could allow for greater flexibility in developing social housing projects that are dedicated, for example, to the lower class. So far, most of social housing, or the possibility to use public money for social housing, was very restricted only to the very low and most fragile and vulnerable groups. So you see, there are things that can be done, and even the fact that we are analyzing the problem in depth, that we are looking at all the countries, we are looking for best cases, best practices, worst practices, what could make the problem worse. I think it can be a very, very valuable contribution. Well, some of the things I mentioned, review in state aid rules could be very helpful. A new framework legal framework for short-term rentals regulations. I honestly would like to see also something in the next MFF, multi-annual financial framework. I think we need more money dedicated to housing. We need to support countries and regions and cities that are struggling with financing and supporting new social housing projects. And of course we can devise new models for public-private cooperation, but we also need more public investments. And here the European Union could play a role, but we would need some courage in the next multi-annual financial framework. And so these are the things that I think are the biggest priorities. And then, of course, we are also working a lot in trying to simplify the permitting processes to make it faster and easier to also renovate and build new projects. So this is also an important thing that could be done.